A train pulls into Amritsar station on August 17, 1947. The platform is packed with families waiting for relatives arriving from the new Pakistan. But when the doors open, nobody steps out. Every single passenger, 3,000 men, women and children, has been butchered. Blood drips from the carriages onto the platform. Pinned to the engine is a note, a gift from Pakistan. This wasn't war. This was partition, the bloodiest mass migration in human history that created two nations and killed 2 million people in just 4 months, a trauma that still haunts the subcontinent today. Before midnight on August 14, 1947, India was one country. By dawn on August 15th, it was 3 pieces: India, West Pakistan and East Pakistan, separated by 1,000 miles of Indian territory. The man who drew the border, British lawyer Cyril Radcliffe, had never been to India before. He was given just 5 weeks to divide a subcontinent of 400 million people and 5,000 years of civilization. He accomplished this monumental and ultimately tragic task using little more than a pencil, outdated maps and census data, forever changing the destiny of millions. For 90 years, the British Raj had ruled India through a simple but effective formula: divide and rule. They set Hindus against Muslims, princes against peasants, and castes against castes. By keeping the local populations fighting each other, they prevented a unified front from forming against British colonial rule. It was a masterful strategy of political manipulation that worked beautifully until it didn't. The seeds of animosity that the British had sown for decades were about to erupt into a harvest of unimaginable violence when their empire finally began to crumble under its own weight. By 1946, the British Empire was broke. World War II had drained its treasury and its will to govern. Indian soldiers who had fought for Britain came home asking a simple question: if we could die for British freedom, why can't we live for Indian freedom? The Royal Indian Navy mutinied and police forces joined protesters on the streets. The empire wasn't just crumbling, it was combusting. The British realized they could no longer hold India, and their hasty exit would create a power vacuum that turned into an abyss of chaos and death. 3 men stood at the center of this storm, their decisions reshaping history. First, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the Muslim League leader, chain-smoking through his tuberculosis, demanding a separate Muslim nation, Pakistan. Then, Jawaharlal Nehru, India's future Prime Minister, a socialist dreamer who believed passionately in a secular, unified India. And caught between them was Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, watching in horror as his life's work of achieving Hindu-Muslim unity dissolved into a river of blood. Their personal ambitions and political ideologies would determine the fate of millions of ordinary people. On August 16, 1946, Jinnah called for Direct Action Day to demand Pakistan. In Calcutta, this call became the opening act of an apocalypse. Muslim League supporters gathered at dawn. By noon, they were killing Hindus. By evening, Hindus were retaliating. For 4 days, India's second-largest city became a slaughterhouse. The numbers are staggering: 4,000 dead and 100,000 homeless in a single city. But the methods were medieval. Bodies hung from lampposts, pregnant women were mutilated, and children were thrown into burning buildings. The vultures grew so fat they couldn't fly. What they don't teach in textbooks is that the violence wasn't spontaneous. Political parties on both sides had stockpiled weapons and distributed lists of addresses. The first victims were often moderates, Hindus who opposed partition, and Muslims who believed in a united India. The strategy was clear: kill the peacemakers first, and peace itself dies with them. This was not a riot. It was organized, politically motivated ethnic cleansing. Gandhi, at 77 years old, walked into the killing fields with no protection. He fasted, prayed, and somehow the violence stopped. But it was like putting a bandage on a severed artery. Cyril Radcliffe arrived in India on July 8, 1947, his primary qualification for dividing the subcontinent. He knew nothing about it. The British government believed his ignorance would ensure his impartiality. They gave him just 5 weeks to draw a border that would separate 88 million Muslims from 250 million Hindus and 6 million Sikhs. He worked in secret in a sweltering Delhi bungalow with no air conditioning, studying maps he didn't understand. He had never seen the villages he was bisecting, a fact that would have devastating real-world consequences for millions. Radcliffe didn't know that the line he drew through Punjab would separate farmers from their fields, wells from the villages that depended on them, and families that had lived together for centuries. The absurdity reached its peak in some places where the border ran through the middle of houses, placing a kitchen in Pakistan and a bedroom in India. One village found their homes in India, but their cemetery in Pakistan. They had to get visas to bury their dead. This was not just cartography, it was the careless dismemberment of a living, breathing society with a stroke of a pen. No matter where he drew the line, millions of minorities would be on the wrong side. Punjab had Muslim-majority western districts and Hindu-Sikh eastern districts, but they were intertwined. Bengal was the same. Muslim east, Hindu west, but Calcutta, the economic heart, was in the middle. Radcliffe's solution was to draw the line and flee. He never returned to India, refused his salary, and burned all his papers. Years later, he admitted, "I had no alternative but to adopt what may be known as the guillotine principle," acknowledging the brutal, unthinking nature of his task. On August 14, 1947, as the midnight hour approached, Nehru prepared to speak in Delhi. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. They were beautiful, poetic words, but India wasn't sleeping, it was bleeding. As Nehru spoke about freedom, 10 million people were already walking. Muslims in India headed for Pakistan, while Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan headed for India. The largest mass migration in human history had begun, and nobody, not Nehru, not Jinnah, not the British, had made any plans for it. Think about that. They divided a country, but forgot to arrange for the people who would need to move. There were no refugee camps, no security arrangements, no food supplies, and no medical facilities. Just millions of people, carrying whatever they could, walking toward borders they couldn't see, to nations that existed only on paper. The partition line's location wasn't even made public until August 17th, 2 days after independence. Millions started walking toward what they thought was safety, only to discover they were walking directly into death traps, their fates sealed by bureaucratic incompetence. What happened next defies comprehension. Neighbors who had celebrated weddings together now murdered each other. The same hands that had shared food now held bloody swords. The violence wasn't just religious, it was intimate, personal, and savage. Trains became moving coffins. They'd leave Lahore for Delhi, packed with Hindu refugees, and arrive carrying only corpses. Revenge trains would then go the opposite direction, with Muslims slaughtered by Sikhs seeking vengeance. Engineers were often the only survivors, deliberately kept alive to deliver the gruesome message of mass murder to the next station down the line. Women suffered the worst atrocities. An estimated 100,000 women were abducted, raped, forcibly converted, and forcibly married. Many were branded or tattooed with the religious symbols of their captors. Thousands chose suicide to avoid capture. Entire villages of women jumped into wells to escape a fate they considered worse than death. In the village of Thoa Khalsa, 90 women jumped into a single well, which is still known today as the Well of Death. Their bodies became a permanent, silent testament to the unimaginable horrors inflicted upon the most vulnerable during partition. Sikhs, caught in the middle, faced particular brutality. Their homeland of Punjab was cut in half by Radcliffe's line. Their leader, Master Tara Singh, declared, "Our motherland is calling for blood and we shall give it blood." They did, and they received it back tenfold. The Sikhs lost proportionally more than any other community. Children were also specifically targeted, not just killed but tortured and forced to watch their parents die. A British officer found a 4-year-old boy trying to wake his dead mother at a railway station. When asked his name, the boy replied, "My name was Hindu, now it is orphan." But heroes existed. During the madness, countless people risked everything to save neighbors of different faiths. Muslim families hid Hindu friends, and Sikh farmers smuggled Muslim neighbors to safety. In Lahore, a Muslim professor named Rafiuddin Ahmed hid 47 Hindu students in his house for 3 weeks, telling a mob, "You'll have to kill me first." In Delhi, A Hindu police officer saved hundreds of Muslims by hiding them in jail cells, the only safe place he could find. These acts of courage proved that humanity could survive even in the darkest of times. The most extraordinary story might be that of Bhutta Singh, a Sikh farmer who bought a Muslim girl, Zainab, from her abductors to save her. They fell in love, married, and had a child. When the two governments agreed to recover abducted women, Zainab was forcibly sent back to Pakistan and made to marry her uncle. She tried to return to Bhutta but was caught. In despair, Bhutta Singh threw himself under a train. His suicide note read, "My love for Zainab was real. Let my death prove it." A tragic end to a love story born from chaos. Gandhi called partition vivisection, a live dissection of the motherland. He refused to celebrate independence, spending August 15 in Calcutta, fasting and praying in a Muslim neighborhood. When Hindu mobs came to kill him for favoring Muslims, he offered his head, and they left in shame. In January 1948, he began his final fast in Delhi, demanding that Hindus and Sikhs stop killing Muslims. He was 78, weighing less than 90 pounds, and doctors said he would die in days. But his sacrifice worked. Weapons were surrendered and peace was pledged. 12 days after breaking his fast on January 30, 1948, Gandhi was shot dead by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu nationalist who blamed him for partition and for being too soft on Muslims. Gandhi's last words were "Ram, Ram," invoking the Hindu god. Even in death, he sought unity.